talking about Christians and voting, you may not be able to find somebody who is exactly what you want in a candidate. Um, this is another issue we agree 100% on, is when it comes to Christian.
Yeah.
There is not a pro-lifer, and this is one of the biggest arguments I see from people that are pro-choice is, well, what about cases where the mother's life is in jeopardy or things like that? And with that, I think it's good to point out that that is like less than 1% of the total actions that happen. But
Right.
also, I don't know a single pro-lifer that has the stance that the mother has to carry to term, even if her life is, even if she's going to die from it. First of all, because if she dies, the baby still dies. Like there's no net positive there,
Right.
and
And the
that
difference between that real quick, I'm
yeah,
sorry, I
yeah,
wanna say
no,
that
go ahead.
there when it comes to things like that, those are procedures, not a so,
Yep,
like, when a baby is born outside of the uterus, and those are dangerous, right? Like, those have to be dealt
yep,
with because if the mom dies because of that, the baby dies, and then it's just, well, okay. So those are
yep.
procedures, and then are intentional, "I wanna get rid of this baby for whatever reason," but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, nope, nope. I agree. That's a good distinction, and so that would be something that my preference would be that abortions are not allowed except for situations where their mother's life is in jeopardy. Um, that would be the only instance. And
Right.
with that, there's not a candidate that's running. Well, especially now because we're down to two. We've got Biden and we've got Trump, and that's it. But even before then, there was not a candidate on either side. Even if you're looking at uh, DeSantis was probably the most pro-life candidate in the race this year, and even he, I think he would land close to where we do, or even the exact same spot. But what he was pushing and what he pushed in Florida, and it actually got passed, was a 6 week. Now, I don't want it to be 6 week. I want it to be from the point of conception. But if I have 6 week or what we have now, I'm taking 6 weeks.
Mhm.
And so that's where, I mean, you have to look at who's there and go with the best choice available. So like now, like Trump, I think wants I don't know. It's like with that issue, I think he is saying like 12 week or something like that. He's actually pretty middle of the road when it comes to that issue. He's not quite as pro life, I think, as a lot of people think that he is. He's still like by far he's way more pro life than Joe Biden, who I think he would say that I could still off my 13-year-old and it would be okay. But no, so he's still the better of the two candidates when it comes to that topic. Or let's look at socialism too. That's one I see a lot. People are like, "Well, Jesus would have been a socialist." Jesus would not have been a socialist. Jesus would be against socialism because Jesus was not in favor of forcefully taking people's stuff and giving it to others. Jesus does want us to give stuff to help people, but that's something that I need to do because that is something that needs to work on me. I have to decide, okay, I'm going to sacrifice this thing because I see that I need to help this people or these people or that person or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, I'll let you before I talk too much on socialism. I'll let you take that one, and if you want to bring up any other specifics, I think kind of look for, and then you can go ahead just jump into the whole idea of Christians and voting. Do you think it's okay not to vote as a Christian?
Um, yeah, I will say I don't think Jesus would have been a socialist. And if people believe that, then obviously they don't understand who Jesus was, um, or is. And so, one of the things I wanted to hit on, and it might actually just kind of so if you want to hit on socialism or
Go ahead.
whatever, you
You're
can.
good.
But um, so when it comes to not voting, because I know a lot of people that say, well, if I don't vote, then I can't be at fault for who wins or doesn't win, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty common mindset, and I think that um, it's irresponsible on our part, if we truly believe, like, because how you what you mentioned a while ago about, well, you don't want to hit on certain topics, right? Well, we don't, and it's common in the church today, like, well, we don't want to talk about abortion, and we don't want to talk about these difficult conversations because we want people to come to church, and we don't want people to feel like, they're um, we don't want people to feel that conviction, or to, because I hear so many people say, like, well, I went to this church and they just talked about damnation and hell and all these things. I didn't like that. And so, um, you know, when you don't vote or you vote for the wrong person, what happens is laws get put into place. And we look at Romans 13, and I don't want to misuse this, but it is it's every person is to be subject, or to be in subjection to the governing authorities, right? And so, and that's it says, for there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. And so, what that's saying is, when we're to be subject to our country, right? Our country's
Yep.
laws, our state's laws, and that's law from God, And so, when we vote people in or don't vote at all, um, whoever gets in and whoever establishes laws, that's what we have to follow, whether we agree with it or not.
Yep.
And so that's the biggest thing, and I'll let you kind of discuss more on. That's the biggest thing when we don't vote, or we vote for people who probably shouldn't be in office. That's the repercussions of that. Um,
Yeah. And I would say really the only exception to that is if there is a law that explicitly goes against a
yes,
command of God or
yes,
something along those lines. Um, so and that's a good point. I think it is lazy. I've even heard people say, as a Christian, it is. I've heard people say it is a sin to not vote. I won't say it's a sin to not vote, but I do think it is very, very irresponsible as a Christian to not vote and not be active in politics. I would equate it to um, being a Christian parent and never doing anything more than just taking your kids to church on Sunday. You never talk about it, never discuss it, never try to build their faith outside of that. You take them to church on Sunday, and when you're done, you're like, no, we're not talking about this anymore. We're talking about sports or what we have this week or what's coming up for lunch or whatever. Um, Again, I don't know that you could say that that is necessarily sin, but it is extremely stupid.
hmm
Um,
irresponsible.
extremely stupid.
Yeah,
Um,
lazy. It's lazy too, I think.
oh yeah,
And
100%.
even if it's
Because
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'd say because and it's because there's work that has to go into it. It's not something that you can just kind of fly by the seat of your pants and do. Like there's legitimate work that goes into it. With politics and figure out who you're going to vote for. You know, I I luckily I have a job, my day job. I'm able to consume a lot of like podcasts and stuff like that. And so I do listen to some political stuff most days. I go back and forth between politics and religious stuff, but I do listen to political stuff most days, and I'm able to stay a lot more in the know because of that. But I mean, even like I could have told you like ranked so my my top picks as far as the Republican side of the aisle when they still had what they had Trump, they had DeSantis, uh Ramaswamy, um I forget the girl's name that just dropped out.
Oh,
I
I can
heard her
see
I
the
heard I heard her called America's ex-wife and I couldn't unsee it. Um I can't remember her name though. Oh, it's driving me crazy. Anyways, her, but like I knew where each of them stood on the topics that were important to me, and I had them ranked on who I would want, who would be my preference, my number one choice, my number two, my number three, and my number four. And I'll be honest, Trump was like my number 3 pick. Uh, he wasn't my number 1, he wasn't my number 2, and, um, that's because of where he stands on some of this stuff, but now that he is the official nominee, that's it's not about the fact that I don't get everything I want. He does not perfectly aligned with where I'm at. It is a
Hmm.
fact that on the things that are the most important to me as a Christian,
Hmm.
he is more close to where I think we need to be than the other guy that's running, but also he is more close to where I think we need to be than where our country is now. And so that is, I don't see how that is a negative for Christianity in America, really at all. But he's got this tweet, and it was a response to somebody, I believe. But he says the conscious can be manipulated to think evil is good. A follower of Christ cannot support any significant policy the Democrat Party is promoting. Obviously, it may be possible for a Christian to vote for a Democrat, but that would be an extreme outlier and doesn't seem to fall under the umbrella of vote Democrat. A follower of Jesus who's a citizen in a democratic republic is neglecting their responsibility to lead if the if I think it meant if they choose not to vote. This would be equivalent to the evil servant not investing his talent. It is an evil thing to neglect the responsibility that God gives us. No one is pushing someone towards demonic activity or calling someone a demon for doing the above. However, indicating indicating the sinfulness of aligning with parties that are evil or calling a Christian to honor Christ in their civic duty is righteous and holy. And I think he hit the nail on the head with that. Um, I don't think I don't have really any issue with what he was saying. I thought it was all spot on. It really summarizes the whole point really really well. As Christians, it is especially I could see you making an argument if you're back in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe even 60s and 70s. I could see you making an argument. Well, I mean, either way you vote, I could see Christians possibly getting behind some of them on either side. Um, I think there have been bad on both sides that Christians should not have supported, but I think right now, with where our country stands and where the two parties are aligned, I don't see how a Christian can vote for a Democrat that supports what the party says that they support. There may be some outliers. I know Joe Manchin, I think is his name. He was a Democrat, but he was very, very center left, and I think on even a lot of the policies that the Democratic Party holds to, he was really closer to where I stand than where they are. And so there are some outliers like that, but just as a overall category right now, I don't see how a Christian can vote that way, and that's not necessarily going to stay that way. It's very possible that it's going to flip or going to end up going differently, or something else is going to come up, and the stances are going to be different in that way. Um, but regardless, as a Christian, I don't think it is okay for us to not vote. I think it is negligent and it is lazy.
Hmm. Yeah, and what's unfortunate is that there's been I'd say over the past 20 so years, maybe even more, there's been a narrative for each party to fit, and like who knows if the people that run even necessarily believe most of these things or even know much about them. They just throw them out there because that's what the powers that be of the party tell them that they should, push. And I don't know if that's the truth or not. I'm kind of throwing a net out there with that one, but you know, it's just that's the unfortunate truth for our government right now is, these parties have specific narratives that they have to fit,
Yeah,
because of the severe division within the country.
yeah,
um, and so, unless somebody's bold enough to come in and change that, whether they decide to be Democrat or Republican, yeah, I agree with you that going Democrat is probably, it is not. a choice that Christians should be making. So